A Place Called Home, a WangXian story. Chapter 3. The next morning passed quietly. The coastal house felt different now. Not empty exactly, but paused, as though it were waiting for someone who would never return. Around 10 o'clock, Lan Wangji was preparing to leave for the farm when a knock sounded at the front door. The sound surprised him. Very few people knew he was staying there. Setting down his keys, he walked to the entrance and opened the door. A young girl stood outside, 15, perhaps 16 years old. She wore a thick winter jacket and carried a canvas tote bag slung over one shoulder. The moment she saw him, she straightened. "Hello." Then she smiled politely. "I'm Wuxian." She gestured vaguely toward the road. "My mother is Luo Mei." Understanding dawned immediately. The daughter. Wuxian shifted awkwardly. "I actually came for my cleaning shift." Lan Wangji blinked. "My cleaning shift?" She laughed nervously. "Ah, right. You wouldn't know." Adjusting the strap of her bag, she explained. Wei Ying arranged it years ago. Her expression brightened. "He set up automatic payments every Sunday morning." Lan Wangji listened quietly. Wuxian continued. "I usually come here once a week to clean the house." Then she scratched her cheek awkwardly. "Well, I received the payment this morning as usual." Her voice became uncertain. "But when I asked Wei Ying whether I should continue, he said the house belongs to someone else now." She hesitated. "So he told me to ask you first. If you don't need help, that's fine too." For a moment, Lan Wangji said nothing. Ordinarily, he disliked having strangers inside his personal space. He preferred order, preferred doing things himself whenever possible. And when work became too demanding, he hired professionals. Simple, efficient. But this house wasn't simply a house. Every room carried traces of his mother. Every object seemed connected to a memory. The thought of an unfamiliar person wandering through those memories should have bothered him. Yet one detail caught his attention. Wei Ying. The familiarity of it, the affection, something tightened unexpectedly in his chest. Without fully understanding why, he found himself wondering. How close were they? How many people knew Wei Ying this way? The realization was strange. He had spoken to the man only once, yet his curiosity continued growing. Finally, he stepped aside. "You may come in." Wuxian visibly relaxed. "Thank you." The moment she entered, her gaze landed on the stack of boxes occupying half the living room. "Oh, my belongings," Lan Wangji explained. "My brother sent them." Wuxian nodded immediately. "I'll clean around them." Lan Wangji inclined his head. "Thank you." Then he followed her with his eyes as she moved through the house. Almost immediately, she walked toward a small storage closet near the kitchen. Opened it. Retrieved cleaning supplies. Closed it again. Without hesitation. Without searching. Without uncertainty. Lan Wangji noticed. She knew exactly where everything was. As though she had done this countless times before. Which, apparently, she had. He watched her fill a bucket. Then asked, "You are the one who normally cleans this house?" Wuxian glanced up, then smiled. "Every Sunday." She wrung out a cloth. "Wei Ying pays really well." A small laugh escaped her. "I'm saving the money for university." She paused. "Honestly, he's too kind." Lan Wangji remained silent, encouraging her to continue. She rolled her eyes fondly. "He knows my mother hates accepting help, so whenever he wants to give us money, he finds some excuse. Cleaning, fixing fences, helping during harvest. He always turns it into work." A smile lingered on her face. "As if we don't know what he's doing." Then, she returned to dusting. Her hands never stopped moving. Efficient. Practiced. Lan Wangji found himself asking another question. "Does Madame Lin stay here often?" Wuxian paused, looking surprised. "Madame Lin?" Then, realization crossed her face. "Oh, you mean Ai." The familiar title struck him. She continued casually. "Not really. She usually stayed with Wei Ying." Lan Wangji stilled. Wuxian didn't notice. "They came here sometimes, especially during summer." She dusted a bookshelf. "But mostly they lived at the farm. We always kept this place clean though." A smile appeared. Wei Ying couldn't stand seeing her house abandoned. His fingers tightened slightly around the teacup in his hand. The farm. Again. Everything led back there. The flowers, the cherry tree, the path. And now this. His mother hadn't merely visited the farm. She had lived there, built a life there, made a home there. A home he had never seen. A home he knew nothing about. Wuxian continued speaking while she worked, completely unaware of the storm of thoughts she had stirred. Meanwhile, Lan Wangji sat quietly, processing, realizing this house contained memories, but not the years he had missed, not the life his mother had built after the divorce. That life existed elsewhere, beyond the town, beyond the fences, inside a farmhouse where she had spent her days planting vegetables, watching cherry blossoms bloom, and sharing meals with a boy she had raised herself. For the first time, a thought settled clearly in his mind. He wanted to see it, not out of obligation, not because of inheritance, but because that place contained pieces of Lin Yueheng he had never known, and perhaps if he was fortunate, it might help him understand the woman she became. and the son she chose to raise. After Wuxian left, Lan Wangji did not immediately go to the farm. Instead, he remained sitting in the quiet living room long after the front door had closed behind her. The house was clean now. The boxes from the city remained stacked neatly against one wall. The ocean beyond the windows rose and fell with steady rhythm, yet his thoughts refused to settle. Every conversation seemed to circle back to the same person. Wei Ying, Wei Ying, the young man who had organized his mother's final arrangements, the young man who had built the stone path, the young man who had spent years caring for Lan Wangji. Lan Wangji found himself wondering what those years had looked like. Had they eaten breakfast together every morning? Had they argued over vegetables and seed catalogs? Had his mother sat beneath that cherry tree while Wei Ying worked nearby? The questions lingered long into the evening, and when sleep finally came, it was restless. The following morning, Lan Wangji left much earlier than usual. The sun had barely risen. A pale winter light stretched across the fields as he parked near the side gate. The key Lan Wangji had been given turned smoothly in the lock. The gate opened with a soft creak. Lan Wangji stepped onto the familiar stone path. The air was crisp, cold enough that his breath misted faintly before him. The garden was quiet. Only the distant sound of birds and the rustle of wind through the trees accompanied him. Then he saw someone. His steps halted. At the end of the path, beneath the cherry blossom tree, a figure sat on the bench. Wei Ying. Fresh flowers already rested upon Lan Wangji's grave. A beautiful arrangement of wild blossoms and winter flowers, far more colorful than the formal bouquets visitors usually brought. Wei Ying sat quietly beside them, not speaking, not moving, simply gazing up into the branches overhead. For a moment, Lan Wangji forgot to breathe. The morning light caught against strands of dark hair. Unlike the day of the funeral, his hair was tied neatly into a long ponytail that rested over one shoulder. A dark coat framed his slender figure. The cold had painted a faint flush across his cheeks. There was something peaceful about him. Lonely, but peaceful, as though grief had settled into something quieter, something deeper. Perhaps sensing his presence, Wei Ying turned. Their eyes met. For the first time, truly met. No phone calls, no crowds, no funeral guests, no distance, just the two of them. The world seemed to narrow unexpectedly. Lan Wangji became acutely aware of every detail. The shape of Wei Ying's face, the tiredness beneath his eyes, the way the morning breeze lifted a few loose strands of hair. And his eyes, they were striking, bright even through grief, expressive in a way Lan Wangji had rarely encountered. The sadness lingering within them tightened something in his chest. Not dramatic, not overwhelming, just a quiet ache, the kind that appeared when seeing someone carry a burden too heavy to bear alone. For several moments neither spoke, neither seemed entirely certain what to say. Wei Ying was the first to recover. A faint smile appeared, small and weary. "You're early." His voice was softer than Lan Wangji remembered from the phone call. Less strained, yet still rough around the edges. Lan Wangji found himself unexpectedly relieved to hear it. "I am." The answer was simple. As always, Wei Ying's smile deepened slightly, not amused, just acknowledging the obvious. His gaze drifted briefly toward the grave. "I usually come before everyone else." A pause. Old habit. Lan Wangji understood immediately. For years, Wei Ying had likely started every day checking on Lan Wangji, making breakfast, preparing medicine, seeing whether she needed anything. The habit remained even after the person was gone. Silence settled between them again. Not uncomfortable, merely uncertain. Lan Wangji stepped closer. His eyes fell upon the flowers arranged beside the grave. Wild and colorful. Beautiful, like all the others he had seen over the past week. "You brought these." Wei Ying followed his gaze, then nodded. Ai liked flowers. His expression softened. Not expensive ones. A faint laugh escaped him. She always said flowers growing where they pleased looked happier. The words carried such familiarity, such affection. Lan Wangji could almost hear his mother saying them. For a brief moment, neither looked at each other. Instead, both looked toward the grave, toward the woman they had each lost. The winter wind stirred the blossoms overhead. A handful of petals drifted gently to the ground, and standing beneath the cherry tree she had loved, Lan Wangji realized this was the first time he had ever met the person who knew the most about his mother's final years. Lan Wangji walked the remaining distance and sat down on the opposite end of the bench. Wei Ying didn't move away. The realization brought an unexpected sense of relief. The bench was old enough that two people could sit comfortably without feeling crowded. Between them stretched a respectful distance, filled by silence and the rustling of cherry blossom branches overhead. For a while, neither spoke. The quiet wasn't entirely comfortable, but it wasn't unpleasant either. It felt like two strangers standing before the same wound, unsure how to touch it. Lan Wangji's gaze remained on the fresh grave. Then he said quietly, "We never knew she was sick." Beside him, Wei Ying's shoulders stiffened, not in surprise, as though he had expected the question eventually. The silence that followed deepened. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft. "I know." A petal landed near his shoe. He watched it for a moment, then added, Yi didn't want you to know. Lan Wangji turned slightly toward him. Wei Ying kept his eyes on the grave. By the time we found out, both of you were already abroad. His fingers tightened around the edge of the bench. She said there was nothing either of you could do. A small, sad smile appeared. She didn't want you carrying that kind of worry from the other side of the world. The words sounded very much like something Lin Yueheng would do, protecting others from her pain, even when she shouldn't have had to. Lan Wangji lowered his gaze. What happened to her? Wei Ying was quiet for a few moments, as though organizing memories. Then he answered, "Cancer." The words settled heavily between them. It was caught relatively early at first. He let out a slow breath. The doctors were optimistic. Lan Wangji listened without interruption. Yi had surgery. Wei Ying's voice remained steady. Then chemotherapy. His eyes drifted toward the distant fields beyond the fence. For a while we thought things were getting better. A faint smile crossed his face. She even started planning another garden. The smile disappeared almost immediately, but 2 years later it came back. The winter wind stirred around them. This time it had spread. His voice grew quieter. The treatment still worked for a while. Another pause. Then they stopped working. Lan Wangji felt something tighten in his chest. 5 years. 5 entire years. 5 years of hospital visits, tests, treatments, fear, and they had known nothing. 5 years? He asked. Wei Ying nodded. Almost exactly. The words sounded strange, as though he had counted every one of those years. Perhaps he had. Yi was stubborn. A genuine smile appeared this time. Small but real. Every time the doctors told her to rest, she'd start talking about planting something. Lan Wangji found himself imagining it. His mother sitting in a doctor's office, ignoring medical advice, arguing about vegetables instead. The image felt surprisingly vivid. Last spring, she spent 3 weeks trying to convince me we needed more potatoes. Wei Ying laughed softly. The sound carried equal parts affection and grief. We definitely did not need more potatoes. Lan Wangji's lips almost twitched. Almost, Wei Ying noticed. A brief flash of amusement crossed his face, then faded. She kept saying we'd thank her during harvest. A silence followed, this one gentler than the others, filled with memories rather than loss. Eventually, Lan Wangji asked the question that had been lingering in his mind. Did she suffer? Wei Ying froze. The question hit differently. His gaze dropped to his hands. For several moments he didn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Near the end, the honesty of it hurt, but she tried not to show it. His eyes glistened. Even in the hospital, a shaky breath escaped him. The day before, he stopped, swallowed. The day before she was admitted for the last time, she was still talking about spring. Lan Wangji remembered that part. The doctor, the phone call, the impossible disbelief. Wei Ying laughed quietly, broken around the edges. She wanted another patch of potatoes. The laugh dissolved. She wanted strawberries too. His eyes remained fixed on the grave, as if there was still time. The words hung in the air. Lan Wangji looked at him. Really looked at him. At the exhaustion still lingering beneath his eyes. At the grief he carried with such determination. At the years of worry hidden behind a few simple sentences. 5 years. While he and Lan Zichen had been living their lives, building careers, attending meetings, crossing oceans, this man had been sitting in hospital rooms, learning medication schedules, watching test results, holding Lin Yueheng's hand through treatments. Alone, the realization settled heavily between his ribs. Neither guilt nor jealousy, something more complicated. A recognition of everything Wei Ying had carried, and everything he had lost. The wind stirred the branches overhead once more. A shower of pale blossoms drifted through the air. For a long time, neither man spoke. They simply sat together beneath the cherry tree. 2 sons grieving the same woman, each slowly discovering the life she had shared with the other.